Awesome. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you all are. I know we have a few folks coming in, but very excited to have everybody join us today for this webinar. And very excited to have three esteemed guests that have joined us here to chat a little bit about advocacy and to chat about what we're doing to turn residents and your communities into fans of tourism, of the DMO itself, and how you're building some of the advocacy in that space that's growing in that area. I'll start off with an introduction. My name is Dan James, the CEO of Karsh Hagan Madden, KHM. Those of you who have followed us on social may have seen a little bit of change in the last 24 hours. It's been a fun time for us to go through that brand, but really it's a function of how do we continue to build the storytelling and media and build that gap between close the gap between where a brand is and how it's seen and felt. So we're really excited for that as we bring our guests here. So without further ado, let me ask each of our guests to give a little bit of an introduction here. Beth, we have Beth Gendler, President and CEO of Alabama's Beaches, Lynn Tillotson, President and CEO of Visit Portland, Maine, and Jim Walter, President and CEO of Visit Cheyenne. If all of you could go ahead and give a little bit of a background on yourselves and your organizations would be great. And Beth, I'll let you kick off.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me today. Excited to hear what everybody else has going on in their destinations. We had a nice little conversation beforehand, so got to hear a little bit about everybody. I've been with our organization, Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism, formerly marketing Alabama's beaches for 24 years now. Started out in the sales department, started our sports commission, and am our second CEO since we were formed by an act of legislation back in 1993. So excited. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you. And Lynn?
Good morning. No, afternoon. Oh my gosh, where's the day going? My name is Lynn Tillotson. I'm the president and CEO of Visit Portland, Maine. And Beth, you and I have followed a little bit of the same path. I am only the third CEO of the organization since it started in 1982. The first one only lasted just about 2 years. So we have some longevity here, and I've been with the organization since 2002. Prior to that, I'm a recovering hotelier. I was a hotelier in Orlando at the Orlando World Center Marriott. So tourism has been in my blood for all my life, really. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you, Lynn. And Mr. Walter.
Good morning. It is morning here in Cheyenne. Jim Walter, President and CEO of Visit Cheyenne. I believe I'm the fourth CEO since 1989. And I officially took over in February as the President and CEO of Visit Cheyenne, but I've been here for 13 years and in varying roles. First as the Director of Convention Sales, then Director of Sales and Marketing, and then for about the last 5 years, I was the Vice President of the organization. I cut my teeth. I've been in the industry since 2003. I was the Executive Director of Madison County Tourism in upstate New York. So hello to any of my upstate New York past and former colleagues. It's just great to be here and love this industry and love the things that we get to do on a regular basis.
Awesome. Well, great to have all three of you here. A quick housekeeping note for everybody that's on line. You'll be able to ask questions into the chat, and we'll cover those as we get into the conversation and get into the end of the conversation here. Want to kick things off as we talk about advocacy and we talk about residents and fans. The people that are closest to us tend to be the people that are on our boards, right? So conversations with boards often are very much financial or operational, but they always tail into some of these things of what's coming next and what are we talking about looking for next. Would love to hear a little bit from each of you. What's going on in your communities right now, and what are your boards really asking you to think about that's maybe a little bit different than what you've seen in the past? Jim, I'll let you're in the mix, the thick of things with the renewal, so I'll let you kick us off here.
Well, we have an interesting situation in Wyoming as a state. We have our lodging tax is voted on by the public every 4 years. So this is a lodging tax election year. It'll happen during the general election in November. And we have seen in Wyoming, Wyoming's a red state, but we've seen it a little bit of a shift to even further to the right with a portion of our Republican Party, where we've got a large number of Freedom Caucus members who have really kind of we kind of have two Republican parties right now in the state, and the Freedom Caucus is big, no taxes of any kind. They want to completely eliminate property taxes and cut services. So, for us, we're out there on a regular basis, making sure that we're selling the value of tourism and that lodging tax. Luckily for us, we're able. It's a 4% local lodging tax. 2% of that is state statute, but the other optional 2% has to be renewed by the general public. So we work really hard to make sure that the general public is knowing, where those lodging tax dollars are going and how they're being effective and how they pay back the community.
Awesome, Jim. How about you, Beth?
It was interesting last board retreat last December. We talked a lot about destination stewardship, advocacy. How do we stay in our marketing lane and help the cities amplify that message? We live in a beach town. There's literally no other business here. Every single business you think of supports tourism in some way, shape, or form. And at least 75% of both municipal budgets come from tourism spend dollars. Our cities both run about $85–90 million budgets. Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, both have those budgets. We have school systems that are separated from their city school systems. They're not part of the county school systems. Tons of infrastructure projects going on. So it's always a big balance for us about how we tell that tourism story, the visitor economy, and really what our mission is, right? It's to bring people here, but it's to improve the quality of life for our residents. So that's just a constant storytelling that we have to do. And I think at that last board retreat, we really got the municipalities are good with us helping tell that message, do a little bit more of that, because it's super important. We have a lot of new residents here that moved in since COVID. And I mean, our population size has doubled. So it's a constant telling of the importance, but also showing it, right? Being a value to the people here and showing what the value is. So we're working on all that. And it's a constant, it's just constantly moving. And I can give you some specific examples later on.
Yeah, I was actually just going to be like, let's dive in a little bit more on that. I mean, you talk about the storytelling, and of course, you're leading out there, and you're talking about the billion-dollar impact that you have, and all those massive numbers and the economic metrics that, of course, everybody believes immediately, and takes completely, there. So what's your storytelling looking like, and how have you shifted some of that?
So we've started talking about it from the resident standpoint. Y'all helped us put together a really great video that lives on one of the things I'm really most proud about that came out of our destination stewardship planning, which was forourlocals.com. And it's really just how we are able to communicate with our residents about lots of things, but the importance of tourism. There are people on that video that are coaches for our high school baseball, softball teams, football teams, teachers, principals, area businesses. We have in a town of 2 towns less than 25,000 people, we have a freestanding ED. That would never have happened in a town our size if it weren't for the demand of the visitor economy and the demand of the number of people that come here. So the hospital CEO is on that. One of our big developers is on that. So it's really those people telling the story of how the tourism spend betters their lives, betters the lives of our children, helps I think one of the teachers said, as a kid is holding a snake in its hand, that the outdoor really comes to life for the kids in our classrooms because of the resources, the economic resources that they have because of it. So we're trying to stop telling it as much as allowing it to be told by the people that are being impacted by it. So that's one of the ways we're doing it.
I love that, and I'm definitely gonna, ask you guys later a little bit about, those next set of stakeholders, beyond your board for sure. But before we get to that, Lynn, what's going on in your board discussions right now?
Yeah, it's a little different because in Maine, we don't have an optional lodging tax. Our lodging tax is 9% and 100% of that goes to the state. So our municipalities don't receive any benefit from lodging. And so they have a hard time relating that direct benefit of visitation. Instead, they kind of get a little cranky about it and realize that it's costing them some money. So I'm continually having to explain to the city council, city management, how important it is and why it's important, but they're not seeing it direct to their budget. So Beth, I can't wait to, I was writing down notes. I can't wait to look at your video and that website because that's a key message. I did a survey to the hotels not too long ago and said, what's on your expense report that allows you to operate? And that was enlightening to share with the city council because it was things like snowplow companies and lawn care companies and the local fishermen and graphic designers and attorneys. And, it was all 46 different businesses that you don't think of as tourism. So we were able to share that. And I think a light bulb went off a little bit, but it is a struggle that we have for them to really respect what it does for our community.
So hearing that, it's, seeing themselves in the community and seeing themselves as part of tourism is kind of one of the things that people don't think that they're in tourism oftentimes, right? And I think that's a common thing that we've seen. Jim, I think you saw some of that with, some of the Trailblazers campaign and the tourism looks good on you work. And, what's got you down that road, and what are you seeing as some of the benefits that you're getting there?
I love to travel to communities in the shoulder seasons because you get to talk to locals more often. You're sitting at a bar and you've got locals on either side of you, and you kind of get the feel. And we've all got breweries, we've all got museums, we've all got distilleries, those types of things that people how do you differentiate yourself? And it's the people that live in our communities that differentiate yourselves. So we started a campaign. It's about our third year. It's our Trailblazers campaign. It's an offshoot of our regular marketing. About, we feature, a local chef, a couple of local artists, a local musician, one of our distillers, a woman who makes leather handbags right here in Cheyenne, a rodeo athlete who's one of the prime saddle bronc riders in all of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, but grew up here in Cheyenne. They're all kind of ambassadors, and we call them our trailblazers. And on our website, you can read their stories, you can learn the background. Cheyenne was built by people blazing a trail out west, 125, 150 years ago, and it's still being built today by people that are blazing their own trail, whether it's in the arts community, whether it's in rodeo, music, craft beverages, those things, and letting them tell their stories. And then this year we added, a map on that site where people can go and experience these trailblazers. Where can we find these trailblazers and maybe actually have a conversation with them? What are their, we got itineraries from the trailblazers. It's, what's their favorite restaurant? What's their favorite attraction to do in Wyoming? So it's getting that local insider knowledge out to the visitors coming to our community. And at the same time, it's utilizing people from Cheyenne is our greatest marketing tool, is our greatest storytellers. And I've always felt that, being able to tell the story of your destination is just, it's so paramount when it comes to destination marketing, and using the locals has worked really well for us.
Yeah, it's amazing that, as much distrust or lack of trust that exists in the ecosystem when you look at, the trust ratings of how much people trust government or organizations or businesses or anything. Like they're definitely not doing well, but they trust other people, and that trust to have those itineraries and to be like, oh, this is where the person I just read about goes, and it's now a trusted and valid source is important. And we're seeing other thing people do that too, like Apple Music. If any of you are on it, Apple Music does. Here's Ella Langley's playlist, right? And people are going to like different artists that they're part of their communities, and they're building that entire community. And we see that as a big benefit to not just outward marketing, but to getting people that can help bring those stakeholders along. And I think Beth, that's a kind of where you were going, and maybe come back to that a little bit of that CEO of the hospital system, or those other organizations, they're bringing an entire audience to you as those larger stakeholders with those employees. And you've seen just a tremendous amount of employees and employment that's happening inside of Gulf Shores, that's coming not just from the residents but from outside the region. So can you talk a little bit about how you've built that stakeholder engagement and kind of broaden your reach there?
I'm not sure be sure I cover what you're asking me, but yeah, both of our towns, like I said, less than 25,000 people, right? Tourism employs almost 60,000 people in our destination. So definitely the surrounding communities are very affected by tourism. Certainly people coming through their towns to get to the beach. But it's interesting. There's a little town called Alberta, and there's like a really brand new, really cool, awesome restaurant you'd have never thought would be in Alberta. And so I think that it's a testament to the types of people that tourism brings to the area. People want to live here, be a part of this community, but maybe don't want to live right at the beach. So they're moving into these outer communities, right, that are served by the same hospital system, that are served by the same core group of businesses. And they're able to develop really outstanding things in these outlying communities because of the impact of that tourism has around the area, and not just on Gulf Shores and Orange Beach proper. So I think that those people are big fans of tourism, probably because they don't live right in the middle of it all the time either. But it really has expanded the reach of how much it does. It means kids are all employed during this, or at least have the opportunity to have jobs in the summertime, right? Even in these outlying areas, even into Florida. We butt right up against Florida. I think we mentioned Floribama earlier, but yeah, the Florida-Alabama line. So even those communities are affected by the positivity of tourism, and it grows the economy for everyone. I don't know if that answered your question particularly, Dan, but.
It does, and the key element, maybe the point I was hoping to make sure people take away is like those stakeholders, when you start inviting them in, and those trailblazers, for Jim's group there, they don't just bring their audience, themselves to that campaign. They bring their employees, they bring their friends, they bring their network, they share. It's like, hey, check out this little thing I did. The text message thread that blows up, and that somebody sees you at t-ball practice, and they're getting that. It really makes and brings some of that community together, and seeing that. And as we think about building that trust, to generate resident sentiment, to get people to vote for the lodging taxes, and I think those are such an important part of the small things that we do in that space. Speaking of like just being visible, and how have you all thought about your own personal visibility, on social media, on earned media, press? Like, how do you think about your public persona, and putting the human face on, who your organization is? And that's definitely seen people that are out there nonstop. I think Brad Dean and Kayleen, at Visit Bentonville do very public, very frequent jobs there. But what's been y'all's approaches to that. Or I've also seen the other side. I mean, the other side is like, no, I'm part of the organization. The organization always has to sit up front. So any thoughts or, opinions on how you've approached that discussion? Lynn, I might throw that one to you next.
Oh, that's, I'll do LinkedIn. Personally, I'm really bad at promoting myself on social media. Yeah, so I really let the organization sort of take the forefront, but on LinkedIn, certainly we try to promote what each of us are individually doing, so it shows that we're connected with the community. But I'll admit I'm not good about doing that on Facebook or Instagram.
It's hard,
That's what
right?
you're asking?
It feels like it is. It feels like you're
Yeah.
self-promoting there, but you're also trying to build that trust to the people around you so they can be seen, and it's a tough balance there. How about Beth and Jim? I mean, have you all thought about that?
Go ahead, Jim, you
Okay,
tackle that
sure.
question.
That's an interesting question for me, Dan, because it was about this time last year that it became obvious that our previous CEO was going to be a candidate for the Wyoming State Tourism job. So at that point, as being the incumbent and knowing that I wanted to move into this chair, I really kind of, yeah, on a couple of things. I try to stay out of the mess on Facebook, that type of Facebook, Twitter, or a lot of the back and forth. I try not to, people sit there and complain about things unless there's a real simple answer that's not going to get into mudsling. I try to avoid that. But I've used LinkedIn extensively. I wanted to build the trust of the community that if I was elevated to the CEO role, that it wasn't just well, he's the VP, he's the easy hire, let's do that. So I started writing articles on, my beliefs on buying local and supporting local businesses. I started writing articles on the importance of, the tourism industry in general, directed mainly to locals here. And, it's been picked up, and expanded regionally and nationally as people, as happens with social media. But I've really used the LinkedIn and LinkedIn articles as my platform, almost kind of instead of having my own blog about what are my beliefs in tourism, what are my beliefs in destination marketing, taking the easy road of not creating the blog and just going in doing those LinkedIn articles. Try to do about one a month and then post regularly. And then I'll share those articles to my Facebook as well. So I'm hitting that broader audience. The other strategy that we use as an organization is I try to do a quarterly op-ed for the local media. Whether that's and oftentimes an op-ed tends to be for your print media and in your digital media, but it's oftentimes spawned where the TV station wants to come and talk to me about the ideas and create a story out of what my op-ed is. And it allows us to help control that narrative. Having the public voting on our dollars, it's very important to us as an organization that we're fully transparent on where those dollars are going, what our goals are, reminding people that we've got a robust tourism master plan and that we're checking things off that tourism master plan as we go along. So I've used that as a real resource to build my personal brand and grow comfort with the people in the community that yes, I was the no-brainer right person for the job, and at the same time to also elevate the what Visit Cheyenne is and what we do and get that information out there into the public sphere.
It's such an interesting, spot there because then you are in a spot that you're trying to, move professionally in one direction and also get deeper into the community at the same time as you amplified. I think as we think about networks, we have these overlapping networks oftentimes that are, here's my community network and here's my professional DMO professional community network. And you're sometimes playing to both groups, at the same time, and especially on social media for sure, but definitely I see a lot of cheerleaders. Beth, anything that you've taken? I know you've been very active in some of the press releases and some of the news side of it for sure. How else are you engaging there?
Well, I think to that point, the news media is really kind to us. In fact, I have an interview at 2 o'clock. So they are, I mean, the beach is a great story, right? So they're very kind to us, and I try to be a positive face for all of that. And I love Jim's ideas. I wish I were more of a writer. I'm not. But I know Crystal, our VP of Marketing, is listening to this, so there's probably going to be some chores for me after this. Thanks, Jim. But I try to just stay positive on social media, let our organization take lead there. And I think I do try to be intentional about my personal relationships with elected officials, board members. I serve on numerous boards in the community. So I know that everything's high tech in this world, but we're in a people-driven industry, and I live in a small community, and I think it's super important to stay engaged with people, with our industry partners, with owners of businesses, hoteliers, restaurateurs, and just make sure that everyone has my phone number, everyone knows how to get a hold of me, and that I'm out there in the community being a part of it and serving on those boards and serving our community. So a little less techy, but it's working
I like it.
for
And
me.
it's actually like in person and having those like discussions that people know who you are, and it comes back to they trust the people that they know. And but it does very much affect some of that balance of how many nights of board meetings am I going to have this week, or events that are out there. I'm sure that's a challenge for everybody in that space. Lynn, I wanted to maybe transition a little bit. I think you guys have made a pretty big investment in trying to think about, how to bring a more diverse audience to you all, and have built some of the pieces around the Lightkeepers project. Would love to hear a little bit, or have you share a little bit of that with the group here.
Yeah, Jim, your Trailblazers reminded us a little bit about our Lightkeepers project. It's focusing on people, but in Maine, it's no secret, we're primarily a white state. And we were really struggling with having people come and feel safe and comfortable and know that they would be welcome to come here. And the diversity within our community is changing drastically over the last 5 years. It's completely changed. It's not that way anymore, especially in the Portland area. So we really wanted to highlight that and make sure that we were putting out the stories that people who live here, who are diverse, are enjoying living here. They chose to live here. They are continuing to live here. They're thriving. They feel welcome. And so it's really some stories from those people that we're going to be putting out there to help everyone else say, oh, all right, yeah, I can go there. I'll be safe. I'll be welcomed. We're really, really excited about it. We just got started with this project. This is our first year. We're actually in the editing stages of these videos with Madden. Everything we've seen so far, we're really excited about. So we can't wait to continue this project, and we'll keep growing it in all diversity. Same thing. We've got some great chefs that have really started the movement. We're a huge culinary destination in Portland. So highlighting some of them and how they got started, and the people who are fueling the light and guiding people here.
I love everything about the feeling of it, of like the guiding people there, and being a beacon in a lot of ways to how it is, and whatnot. So I think that's going to be an exciting campaign. Selfishly, we're really excited about it. And of course there's no bias here as we look there. I think it's also a good way of how we think about, starting to get a broader group of people that support what you're doing, and building those advocates and those brand advocates. So, we talked a little bit about those, stakeholders there, but that broader sense of resident advocacy and resident excitement, has so much to do with building a positive environment there. Beth, I know you've had some fun getting your new brand out there as you shifted, and seen a new storefront emerge. And what have you seen there, and what have been some of the lessons you've taken from getting some good destination and resident advocates there?
Yeah, moving from Gulf Shores and Orange Beach to Alabama's beaches was just much more inclusive. I know I mentioned that we represent two towns, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, but we also represent Fort Morgan area, which is a peninsula down. One side is Mobile Bay, one side's the Gulf of Mexico. So it was not inclusive of our whole area. So when we sat down with our team and Madden and said, what do we do to really represent the area, Alabama's Beaches was born. And it has allowed us to start an online store. Anybody interested? It's the Shoreline Supply store, but it's a great brand, and it'll be fun when we start seeing it other places we go, which is wonderful. And it allows our locals to buy a hat, buy a t-shirt that represents the area, our visitors as well. But one of the big wins, I think our cities really liked it. When we made the switch, I went to a city council meeting in Orange Beach, I think it was. Anyways, one of our cities, and several of the council members said to me, "Thanks, that's really cool switch. We love that. We feel like that is much more inclusive of the area." But we had a new bridge built. We now have 3 bridges that you can get off on our island. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. 2 of them are one ways. But anyway, beside the point there. The cities both had to name the bridge. There's a number to the bridge too, the road, but they named it Alabama's Beaches. So that was a big win, and really said to us, hey, this is important. We also started commercial service at our airport last year, and their entire marketing campaign is Fly Alabama's Beaches. So we know that it's resonating with local businesses, local municipalities, local residents, and we're excited about that. We feel like it unites everybody, but allows our communities to have their own individual personalities as well.
Yeah, my highlight of was we were in Nashville, and I definitely saw some Gulf Shores shirts that were out there, and then I saw an Alabama's Beaches one while we were there, and it was it was pretty exciting to see for sure on that side. Jim, how about you? And as you think about getting out to that larger community, I know you've done a little bit of advertising and working there. What have you seen that's been helpful in getting the community engaged and that larger resident population?
Yeah, as I sat at DI last year and listened to the presentation on the future study, the light bulb really went off that, we've spent a lot of time talking to our city councils, our county commissions, our state legislators, but we just don't spend enough time talking to John Smith walking down the street who, running their kids to soccer practice, living out in the suburbs, but they're active members of the community. And we really needed to start talking to the community more directly. And actually, I charged my KHM team last fall with coming up with a local campaign targeted just to locals that kind of explains how and why tourism exists and what it does for the community. Because of the lodging tax, we've got to be very careful that I can't Visit Cheyenne, or my board can't say, vote yes for the lodging tax. We can't say that, but we can sure the heck tell you all of the great reasons that, all the great benefits to the community that tourism provides, and an education campaign. So we put that together this year and ran it in March and April. We did social. We created a landing page at Cheyenne.org that had a lot of the numbers and information. We created a lot of out-of-home advertising as well, radio, podcasting, really kind of blanketed the area in March and April, letting people know pre-tourism season, before it's coming up, all of the benefits. And it was really, kind of focused on, these are the nice things that we have in our community because, we have tourism to our community. Cheyenne Frontier Days is a great example. It's one of the top 8 rodeos in the world. It's professional. It's Major League Baseball level, in comparison when it comes to rodeo. We're a city of 75,000 people, 100,000 people in the community, and we've got a Major League rodeo event that comes to our city every single year, and we've been doing it for 130 years. And along with that, 7 night show concerts with top of the line Nashville acts every year, 2 nights of bull riding, And for a community this size, we're blessed. We wouldn't have that here. If we could, without Cheyenne Frontier Days, if we could have one big concert a year, we'd be doing really well. So those types of things, the amenities that we have in our downtown, the restaurants that we have, all of those things, they couldn't exist if it was just based on the residents of this community alone. And so sharing that story and telling that story to the people in the community became paramount, became very important. And of course, we paired that with an op-ed in the paper at the same time, and just being out there, followed up with National Travel and Tourism Week in May, where we, trying to meet people where they are and have those conversations, because we are very splintered when it comes to where people get their information anymore. And, where I get my information is not where my 19-year-old daughter gets her information, but we're both voters. So we've got to be able to have that conversation with people, meet them where they are. And something else that we just did, it occurred to me a couple weeks ago. We have a Friday night concert series out here on the plaza. And it's a free concert for the community, and we're a sponsor of that. So we printed 10,000 plastic beer cups that had the Friday Nights on the Plaza logo on one side and supported by the lodging tax on the other side. So, just another way to get that into the hands of people,
That's a
literally.
great idea.
Oh, and the number of things that DMOs sponsor as events that are like, oh, we've always sponsored this, but we don't always make that ask or do that next thing to be like, here's how it could help that make that pay off. I love seeing that on that you have there. Uh, let's I'm going to make a hard right turn. We talked about all the fun things, all how these things we're very much engaged in the community, building this trust with these organizations. Let's talk a little bit about data. How are you measuring and thinking about this success? What are you finding to be barometers to whether you're succeeding or not, and how you grow some of that resident trust? I mean, is it the resident sentiment surveys, or are you doing those? What's frequency and tools that you've found that's helpful that you might be able to share with the larger audience here? Nowhere to start. So who would like to volunteer?
Well, I'll go. We've got the ultimate resident sentiment study. Ask me on November 4th how we did. At the end of the day, people can take their studies, and we did. We commissioned Longwoods to do a study for us this spring as well. And we've got broad-based tourism support in our community. 86% of people in the community felt that tourism was good for Cheyenne. 82% wanted to see more tourism, more tourists come to Cheyenne. So it's very broad-based. You can't get 86% of the people to agree on anything anymore. So we were really happy to see those numbers. Our lodging tax has never not passed with less than 70% of the vote. So we've always had that strong support. We position it as a tax that the locals typically don't have to pay. And that survey showed 74% of the people were planning to vote for it again this year, which has helped me sleep a lot better at night. But what it also showed, though, was only about 47% of the people had any concept of where those lodging tax dollars went after they were collected. We asked, one of the questions was, does the local government do a good job of promoting tourism? And I think 48% of people said yes. But 33% of people said they didn't know. 1 out of 3 people who took that survey had no idea where it went. So that's really what's helped us. The light bulb for me was, okay, we need to really be a lot more forward facing on saying this is because of lodging tax. And I wonder if the survey had said, does Visit Cheyenne do a good job of spending the lodging tax dollars versus does the local government do a good job? Because a lot of us think local government doesn't do a good job at anything, let alone spending our taxpayer dollars. That tends to be a feeling that a lot of people have. So I think if we said Visit Cheyenne, if people would have made that connection, that that it was a little bit different, and we may change that question up the next time we do it. But for us, just the fact that 1 in 3 people didn't really know told us we had some work to do education wise in the local community.
Okay. Any tools or things that you've seen, Beth or Lynn, that have been helpful, or that you're considering using here in the future?
Well, it's interesting because, I mentioned that we don't have an optional lodging tax. So since 1982, when we formed, we've been a membership-based organization. until 2023, late 2023, when we formed a tourism improvement district. So I feel like we're almost, in a way, a young DMO, and we're just now really establishing ourselves with tracking that sort of stuff because we can afford it now. So the board is interesting because they've never been used to spending money, and now it's from hotels. All they care about is occupancy. So it, I got a lot of education to do with my board. So right now we're really heavily focusing on increasing winter occupancy, and that's where they want to see the needle move. So we're focusing on that. Of course, we use other platforms that we focus on, and we did a resident sentiment survey with Downs and St. Germain with you guys when we were doing our rebrand, and we were very pleased that overall people are very, very happy with the destination and the work that we're doing. They don't know who's doing the work though, because we just always sort of silently did it. We always said we do what most people think just happens, because we never had to go in front of the council. We never had to do any of that stuff because we just weren't tied to the city like that. So we're really starting to evolve with getting more messaging out there to locals. So I'm going to be checking out your stuff, that's for sure. I've been writing notes like crazy because it's important, and we're just getting started.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna let me transition here a little bit. I got a couple of questions in for Q&A, and I'll send out that invite again to anybody in the audience if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered. The first question was, what is the website for the locals? And that was for Beth, I think directed at Beth here a minute ago.
For our locals, not FOR, ourlocals.com.
Okay. And then the second one is, let's talk. We're going to go back to some of the data and metrics conversations, but Cashin asked, "Do any of you use length of stay as a KPI?" And I might just expand this out to, as you're thinking about your KPIs and what you're looking at, Lynn, you just talked about lodging tax being the number one thing, and the traditional heads and beds models. What are you all seeing as the things that you're looking at most frequently for success here?
Did you just ask me?
Well, I was
Oh,
asking everybody, but for metrics of success for your campaigns, the specific question was, do any of you use length of stay growth as a KPI? And then, my question is more broadly, what are some of the key metrics you're looking at right now?
we monitor length of stay for sure. We're a very, very large drive market, so we're impacted by weather sometimes as well. Um, Things can go up and down. If it's we have a great summer, we've got a great summer. If it's a rainy summer, it's not so good. So we do measure that mostly through our state tourism office. We partner with them, and they do regional statistics for us as well. So we do measure it.
Awesome.
We
Beth,
use
what's on your dashboard?
Yeah, right. Um, we're a heavily short-term rental market. We have 22,000 units, about 18,000 of those are short-term rentals.
Wow.
So we use a company called Key Data that has API to a large majority of their PMS systems, as well as the hotel inventory. So we not only use length of stay, we use stay value. We are able to drill down into where they came from, when they booking windows, when they booked, when they arrive. We're using all of that data. We are, and so is KHM, for our ad placements, knowing that people in the Midwest start planning their spring break around the holidays and all of those kinds of things. So absolutely, but it circles back around to the things that you were talking about with resident sentiment and things. We want to be sure that the people that we are inviting here are high value guests that are going to book out that aren't weather dependent. They're coming anyway. They've committed. Their whole families said we're going to do this, and that they're going to have some additional funds to spend in our destination and do attractions and eat at restaurants. So it really all goes back to that resident sentiment. They don't want everybody here in the summer. They want to spread people out. And what's important to the residents are healthy businesses that they get to enjoy in the off season, right? And that means spreading those visitors out throughout the year so that our restaurants and attractions don't have to amp up so much for help in the summertime, and they're able to keep their full-time people all year long. So all of that really just ties back into what we've talked about all morning or all afternoon, wherever you are, depending on.
We're the same with Beth. Focus on winter, level out that visitation a little bit more.
Then, so you care, I'd say both of those very much care about leveling out seasonality as an indicator of, effective, outcomes versus indicating quality of like a higher length of stay, is tends to be where you all focus on there. Jim, how about you? You're in the same boat or anything different?
Yeah, we're focusing a little bit more on length of stay right now, trying to to grow that. We're very seasonal in the fact that, while I love Cheyenne, um, February and March are not the most pleasant months to come and visit us here in Cheyenne. It's cold, it's windy, but so if we're looking at, extending on on seasonality, we're looking more at, okay, how do we get more people here in October? How do we get more people here in from mid-April and May? How do we make those months more robust? So we've got less of a drop off. November, December, January, those are tough months for us, and especially being so close to some amazing ski destinations, but not being a ski destination ourselves, it's a little tough to get people up here in the winter months. But that length of stay overall, whether it's summer or winter, that's an area that we're trying to develop more reasons to get people to stay here longer.
We have a hard time controlling length of stay because New England is such a tight community, really. We're only an hour and a half from Boston and 3 hours from Acadia National Park in Bar Harbor. So when people come to New England, they're really sort of traveling a little bit. We'd love to have them stay as long as we can, but reality is it's harder. So if we can control promoting winter visitation, which is an amazing city in the wintertime, even though people think Maine is cold, it's not as cold as Chicago. And our restaurant scene is out of control here. So I think we can make a dent for sure.
I like it. Have another question here from Lindsay. She's asking about your campaigns. Do you see them as typically one direction presenting out to locals, or are you also doing community engagement and taking feedback as part of your resident messaging tactics? Beth, I'll put you on the hot seat for this one.
I get resident sentiment every time I go speak to a Kiwanis group, Rotary group. I was sitting having my oil change the other day and somebody was talking to me about it. So although it isn't probably intentional and proactive, it happens constantly. And it's a big topic of conversation for city council meetings and all of those kinds of things. So the campaign is becoming much more intentional out to the locals. We have a locals newsletter, local wave newsletter that's going out, directing people to the website. We've engaged the Chamber of Commerce because they probably have a different base of membership than we have industry partners. So we're asking them to get our information out to our locals as well. And although there's not a lot of places for feedback on those instruments of communication, we certainly are engaged in the community enough to be able to get that feedback.
I think I would like more community feedback, because then I would know that they're actually hearing the message and they've got questions about the message or thinking about the message. I know when our state economic impact numbers came out, and I in one of my op-eds shared that we had a great year last year and shared all of those numbers. There were a number of people online who fairly asked, well, who made these numbers up? Where did these numbers come from? And we then had a conversation about where those numbers come from, and that one of the perceptions was, well, the retail store I work in was down last year. How could have we been up in tourism? And just having that conversation, explaining about how it touches all the different parts of the community. They were a little frustrating to deal with and talk to about it on social media, but I still had that conversation, and I'm always happy to have that conversation. After getting the job permanently in February, I've been out and spoken to all of our town councils and county commissions and city councils in our community, and shared that we want this to be a partnership. I don't want to come out and talk to you once every 4 years because we just happen to have the lodging tax on the ballot. I want to be out here every 6 months or 12 months and just having a conversation about what's going on in your community that maybe we're not hearing about, that we can help you promote.
So, have another question here. How do you handle resident questions and concerns about things that are outside of your control? Homelessness, infrastructure, etc. I think you've all taken a few different, passes at this at different ways. And, Beth, I know you guys have done some things around the infrastructure side, for events and whatnot. But I don't know if you want to kick us off here, and then see what anybody else has to add in.
Yeah, we get questions about lots of things that we have no control over, but we do our best. We support infrastructure projects and talk about our support for those kinds of things while staying back from what's best for the community, because they have city planners but we do talk about some of the things that we were able to contribute to the community from a tourism standpoint. We're working real hard to build a sports tourism complex, which will be great. That's on hold for right now, but we try to remind people of the benefits that they may not know about from a tourism standpoint, so that we can help with some of that kind of conversation. One of our communities was going to build 6 pickleball courts, and we said, we'll pay for 6 more if we can use them for pickleball tournaments. So right now the residents get to play on 12 pickleball courts, which are full all the time. And we were giving one of our cities over $1 million over a 5-year time span to improve some sports complex things. So when people complain about, hey, sports tourism is taking up all the space on our sports fields, we're able to say things like, well, we help to improve those. We're working to build something where it will free up those fields for residents. So we try to turn it, there are things we cannot control, but we can support things that are important to residents and support things that are important to the community, and then also contribute where we think it's important and can help offset some of those burdens that tourism puts on residents just inherently from the way our community is set up.
Yeah, I think some of the things that are out there for rules are definitely one that of what you can and can't spend also becomes a big challenge or inhibitor for a lot of destinations, and how creative you can get with that becomes very much a challenge. Well, in our last 7 minutes that we have left, would love to hear from each of you kind of what you're most excited about next. I mean, we're in this like very interesting time of, DMOs are changing, really in a lot of ways, they've had more funding than they've ever had. We've had more tourism and travel than we've ever had, in a lot of different places, and we're setting all these different records. There's some people that talk about peak tourism, some people that talk about AI, all these things that are out there, but would love to hear, from each of you, what you're most excited about happening in the industry or in your communities in the next 3 to 5 years. And Lynn, I'll let you kick us off.
Shoot. I was hoping it was somebody else. I mean, for our organization, I'm just ecstatic to roll out our new brand. We've got our new website. We're doing the light keepers. I mean, like I said, we're new to this. We're only 2 years with Madden now, and I think it's going to be exciting to see the changes to that we'll be able to really affect our community positively. In the industry, shoot, I don't know. Let's somebody else answer that. I got to think for a moment.
Jim, I'll put you on the hot seat next.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. We have landed the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame and Museum of the American Cowboy moving to Cheyenne, hopefully opening in 2029, 2030 in that time frame. So we're super excited about this is a destination defining development that's coming to our community. I mean, it's Cheyenne, it's rodeo, it's the West. And we're creating a whole business district where the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame will locate, along with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, moving its headquarters to Cheyenne. So the district will entertainment, retail. We're working hard on a hotel conference center to be built there as well, to give us another bullet in that gun regionally. So that's super exciting to me. What I'm exciting, like industry wide right now, just the way technology is moving. I think we're going to have ways, especially with wearables, that Meta glasses, Google glasses, those types of things. I mean, once Ray-Ban got involved with this, and they didn't look awful anymore. All of a sudden wearables became a lot more palatable. So I think the opportunity for us to tell our story, both our current story and our historical story, is just going to explode. And the things that we're going to be able to do with AI to bring the past to life, especially in a town that rests on its Western heritage as much as we do, I think we're going to be able to do some really amazing things with that to increase that visitor experience, to take them back in time, and at the same time, as we talked about earlier, create a longer length of stay, because it turns that maybe that historical walking tour becomes something that the whole family is now. It's gamified and it's a lot of fun, and so I'm excited to see where we can go with that, and how we can make that happen.
I have
Awesome.
my answer. I will say I'm really excited that we've been talking about sustainability and all of that for a long time, and I feel like that's really catching on. People are really genuinely traveling that way now, but I'm also really excited to see where we're going to go even further with social inclusion and more diversity. And I feel like that's just starting a little bit, like sustainability did, and it's going to really kick in across the industry. So I'm excited for that.
I think it definitely has to. And you look at inclusion, and the entire makeup of our traveler base is changing. The spending patterns, who has money, the multi it's a multicultural space, and it's the fastest growing segments are not our traditional segments at all. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to see. And Beth, I'll let you close us out.
All right, I'm excited about I'm just gonna say our Coastal Codes campaign. We started that with y'all, I think it was last year, and it's what do you do? It's this emotional thing. It's what do you do? What's your thing that you do when you get to the beach or on your way to the beach? And it's our staff, it's our residents, it's our guests, it's our industry partners. And we walked away from our tourism summit with a stack of everybody wrote out their coastal code, and we're going to be implementing those and making those come to life over the next few years. And it's that long tail campaign that's super emotional and is really real, right? It is what you do as a family, as a person, when you head to the beach. And I'm super excited about that. And from an industry standpoint, I will have to say technology. What's it going to look like? I mean, it's just really kind of unfathomable where we've come from and where we're headed and what we're going to be able to do with that. And I do hope that we never lose sight of the people that we are in this business for, and that we're about. And we make sure that we keep that personal touch as part of what we all have in the forefront of our minds.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great way to close this out there. All of this business is definitely all about the people. It is all about, the people that, you're inviting there, the people that are serving them, the people that are part of what tourism is, and the hospitality group that's out here that drives the tourism economy. So I love that one as we close out. For those of you that are at Destinations International, definitely invite you all to come see us kick off some of our brand next week on Tuesday, or if you have a big happy hour event on Wednesday night that we're hosting for everybody. If somehow you have not gotten an invite for that happy hour, please email Kate. She will get you back. Kate is who's on the backside of the invite that you got for this email. And just hit reply. Would love to see everybody in person and not behind a technology screen. So with that, thank you all so much for your time. Lynn, Jim, Beth, thank you all so much for your time and your wisdom that you shared with the group and with us here today.
Thank
you.
y'all.
So.